right, let me introduce Cyril to you all. For those of you who don't know Cyril already, he's the perfect person to be doing this webinar today. So Cyril has an extensive background in working with electronics. He's worked in radio electronics and radio communications. He's also trained as a licensed electrician and also as an IBM trained engineer. So he does have a lot under his belt. And Cyril specialises in two areas. One of them is a therapy and one of them is more EMF mitigation area. So his therapy area also involves electronics, and it's a type of informational energy biofeedback therapy called My Health. But he won't be, well, I don't think he'll be talking so much about that today. But his other area of speciality is helping people to mitigate problems associated with electromagnetic radiation, which is so much needed in this day. He runs a business called Health Express World in Queensland, and he offers personalised services and education and products to detect and mitigate EMF pollution. So we're really fortunate to have Cyril with us today, and I can't wait to learn and hear what he's got to say. He'll be presenting on practical tips on how to shield ourselves from EMF radiation. So Cyril, welcome.
Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, good evening to you all. Yeah, look, I've got a background, as you said, in electronics, electronic engineering. I was actually engineering at a very high level with IBM. We were involved in the manufacture of solid-state hard drives in the 1980s, and the public didn't get those for about another 25 years. So we were right at the leading edge of that type of technology. And I went on and I joined the British military and was resolving EMF and communications events, and then I ended up working for the Hong Kong government, and I went into the oil and gas industry from there, doing every type of engineering, and ended up managing giant rigs and massive projects all around the world. So I have a very broad experience in engineering. And from there, strangely enough, I went into healthcare. So that's what you were saying about, and I ended up becoming a pain management therapist, and ended up doing a decade or more in pain management. And my engineering background got me involved in biofeedback, and then I ended up creating with a company called Nest Health, the My Health device, and other related technology. So it's a real changing career backwards and forwards, and it really brought me to the point where I recognized the biological impacts of the electrical fields that were being propagated in the technologies that people are using today. So that's how I ended up eventually leaving full-time healthcare work, and I ended up dedicating our time to looking at EMF and specifically shielding, because that became really pertinent when you were trying to help people recover from illness. So that's what I'm going to look at right now. So let me see if I can remember how to do this. So I can share a screen, and I'm going to pull up a PowerPoint. So here we go. So here we go here, and that should go start from beginning, I hope. Let me just have a look. Okay, so you should have a PowerPoint now, is that right?
Yep.
Nod, thank you very much. So we've got a couple of different companies actually. One is EMF Safety. Okay, now this company, we provide professional monitoring equipment, and we provide it to the telecom companies, the power companies, government bodies, the military. Basically, they're major industries that use this technology, and the equipment we provide is used in court and legal cases and things of that nature. This is not the type of thing that a building biology person would use. These are significant cost devices that are accurate, basically, in fact accurate within legal standards, etc. So we use these actually doing testing of people's homes and other things, as well as providing those to industry and having them manufactured for them. So if you want to know what professional EMF monitoring equipment looks like, type of things we use, that's where you'd go. So emfsafety.com.au. This is our sort of healthcare and domestic area of things, and this is Health Express World, and this is where we do a range of items, and in about a week or so you should see all the Y-Shield material that we provide to people. We're having the website added with all that type of material, so if people want to know about shielding from the materials point of view, what paints and how things are done, that's where that type of information is. And you'll also find information regarding the My Health device that we were talking about before. Now, before I go too much further, I'm going to share something with you. I've arranged a discount for anybody who watches this video. So you may be aware of blue blocking light subjects, you know, lenses and all the rest of it. Well, that company's been good enough to give us a 10% discount for anybody who puts in HEW Light. So that's Health Express World Light. So if you use that code on their website, you'll get a 10% discount on any of their products. So I thought I'd like to share that with you for anybody that wants to make use of that type of thing. Now, here's an example of how simple reducing EMF can be. Okay, now I measured a mobile phone, and the mobile phone was a 6 Plus, so it's a fairly modern phone. And at the head of the phone, as in if you were to put it next to your head, it was producing 11.8 microwatts per centimeter squared. Now, that on its own doesn't mean anything to most people. They don't really understand what it is in relationship to energy, etc. But if you compare that against taking that same phone and pushing it 1 meter away from you, so basically arm's length across the desk, okay, it reduces that value to 0.007 microwatts per centimeter squared. Now, you don't have to understand what those values or numbers mean, do you, to recognize the massive reduction in energy just by pushing it across the desk. So if you've got a phone next to you, if it's in front of you, which we tend to do because we're sort of going, oh, is somebody, you know, calling, or what's that ping? Is there a message? If you were to move it 1 meter away, just push it across the desk, you've reduced your exposure massively. And that alone is a super cheap, easy way to reduce what's going on with your phones. Now, here's an example of the type of issues we actually end up going and having a look at across the road from this house. It was a beautiful Queenslander house in Brisbane. You can see that cylindrical drum on the roof. Now, it doesn't look very interesting at all, but have a look at the value that was on the phone here. Now, this is one of our monitoring equipment. So we're measuring that phone tower across the road, and it literally is that close. We didn't have to zoom in or anything. You could throw a tennis ball at it. Now, the value there is in a different scale. Okay, this one, instead of being let me just see. Now, the previous slide was, you know, centimeter squared. Okay, so it's the same scale, right? So 12.79 microwatts per centimeter squared. So that's more energy in the air around us than having the phone right next to your temple. Okay, now that's dreadful, isn't it? So we're told that you're not supposed to put a phone next to your head. The testing shows that it heats tissue, and they don't want you to put it. It's in your telephone. It says don't put your phone next to your head, don't carry it next to your body, and yet that's the habit everybody does. And yet it's a stronger signal from that phone, okay, or should I say from that phone tower across the street, than it is putting the phone to your head. So suddenly you realize that walking around in society can be the same as if you've got a phone to your head permanently, and yet the manufacturer says don't do that because they know, they've proved that causes illness. So we're in a very difficult situation in society where that situation occurs. Now here's a free app. You can go onto your phone, it doesn't matter if it's an Android or an Apple, and there's an app that you can download. It's referred to as an EMF calculator. You'll find it in any of those free app stores, and You'll recognize it by this W sign. That actually stands for Wave Control. They're based in Barcelona, and our EMF safety company actually represent their devices here. That's a free app, and in there you're able to convert units of measurement. And I recommend having that, because if you do have an interest in EMF, and you might end up reading some medical studies, and you might look at some standards and things like that, they deliberately make them so they might be volts per meter, microwatts per centimeter squared, microwatts per meter squared, nanoteslas, microteslas, milligauss, and by the end of it, you just don't know what you're looking at. This will allow you to literally line everything up and go, okay, now I can see how they relate to each other. Okay, it's a free app. I recommend people download it and have a play. Now, here's some useful books, and I'm going to go through these slides fairly quickly because we're going to hopefully make these available for people afterwards, etc. But I've got about 50 slides and about 42 minutes left to talk to you. So let's work through that. Some really good books. This one here, The Invisible Rainbow. In summary, it shows you what EMF is. EMF is light, okay? Or should I say light is EMF. It's part of the spectrum and we can see it. Other areas of the spectrum we can't, but it looks strongly at the rollout of EMF and how it has affected health over the last 100 years or so. Very, very useful book. There's another one here. This is my absolute favorite book at the moment. This is by Walter Russell. It was written in 1950, but he refers to the whole universe, the way matter, energy, light, electricity, magnetism fundamentally functions to create the existence we live in today. And it's an incredible book. When you read it, everything lines up. You suddenly realize that what universities are telling us is basically a downright lie. They are hiding information that doesn't serve them. They don't want to talk about what's really there and how the universe works. This book is remarkable and quite exciting when you start going through it. This is another really useful book. It comes from the UK and it's dedicated to electromagnetic sensitivity and electromagnetic hypersensitivity. So if you're dealing with clients or you're trying to understand how different conditions interact, this is really, really useful. And it's got about 1,800 different references all listed in the back, and it's full of charts and easy to follow things. It shows you, for example, how hormones are changed through electrical fields, like, for example, the 50 hertz supply coming out of your wall. All sorts of really interesting material in there. Now, for those of you that have never really thought about electro-hypersensitivity, etc., this is a list of the types of things that occur, and they almost happen hand in hand with multiple chemical sensitivity. So if you've got a client who's saying they're allergic to this and they've got this and that going on, ordinarily, you'll find they've normally got electrosensitivity as well. It all comes together in the same way. So you can see that list covers virtually everything most people come to therapy for or complain to a doctor about. Now, if you're looking on YouTube and you're looking to try and find really good information, this is probably the best video I've seen, very concise, by Dr. Russell Cooper, who specifically discusses the biological markers of electromagnetic hypersensitivity and the tests that a doctor needs to do to actually isolate and identify it. These tests have been used in court, and in fact he won a case against the CSIRO where their lead science officer was suffering with electrosensitivity, and he was able to prove with these types of tests exactly what was happening, and it stood up in court and he won the case. So anybody who has doubts about how to even consider these things, it really is worth looking at, remembering that the people like Panzer and other supposed governing bodies, they use psychologists. They don't want to look at the medical side of things. They literally say it's a mental illness and not a biological reaction to a toxin, which it clearly is. And that's part of the big industries hiding what's really going on. Now, we all think we know what a tower looks like. There's a tower. Yep, no problem. You can see that down the street. If you saw one, you'd go, yep, that's it. Well, what about these towers? These towers are fully active, and most people don't recognize them when they drive by. We are getting more and more of this. In the same way that that cylindrical object was on the top of that house, they're hiding them under trees, they're hiding them in church steeples, etc. That's happening all the time. Now, this is in Hervey Bay. This is a school I walked into, and this is at the cricket nets. And we're seeing values here that are somewhere close to 50% more than what we were seeing the mobile phone was when it was placed directly next to your head. Now, this value is 17,550,000 times more energy than has been proven to cause damage to genes and DNA. And this is the children's cricket nets where they spend hours a week. That's pretty crazy, isn't it? Okay, now this is what's happening to people's homes. They're starting to fill them with items that they often refer to as the Internet of Things, okay? And they literally will connect the jug in your kitchen, your iPad, your stereo, your lighting, the temperature controls in your home, the refrigerator. They want to connect it all, and they want to connect it with radio waves. Now, if you read any of those books that we were looking at the beginning, you would see that your body is made up of what basically light and energy. We are electrical beings. So the more distorted patterns we put into our body, the body field struggles to maintain function, and we start seeing chemical reactions, toxicity. So reducing this is important in people's homes. You don't need all these things Wi-Fi together. Something to pay attention to if you're buying Christmas presents, shall we say. A good thing to do is anybody's computer. It's a really simple one. Find a way of connecting it through an Ethernet cable. These are available just about everywhere. And even if you don't see a large hole in the side of your computer, you'll probably be able to get an adapter to plug it in. Even iPads now, you can run, depending on the version of them, through these types of things. This means you can turn off the transmitter in the Wi-Fi menus in the iPad, and that's really important because most of them are designed to point the antenna into the groin of the user, and that's unfortunately, shall we say, part of maybe a eugenics program. I'm sure you can all work that one out. Now, there are lots and lots of devices out there that have Bluetooth, etc., and you just have to choose the way you use them. I was given a speaker for, I think it was my birthday a year or so ago, and we eventually took it back because we realized we could not turn off the Bluetooth. And we ended up getting a Bose one, that one on the top left-hand side, the silver one. You can plug a cable into and turn the Bluetooth off, and it will run just the way it's intended as a speaker, which does not transmit. But if you've got a car stereo, look for the instructions, look for a way to turn it off. And these microwave transmitters that are earbuds that you put in your ears, they don't make any sense at all, and they produce as much energy as any mobile phone right next to the thinnest bone in your body, right into the cavity, into your brain. Now, this is obvious, isn't it? If your kids were playing here, you'd go, look, doesn't feel right. Let's play cricket somewhere else, okay? But do you get the same feeling about this? Okay, this is a Queenslander. It looks like a nice wooden house. I'm going to break it down for you and show you what's really going on, because unfortunately the people that were living here were having multiple rounds of illness, in fact, multiple rounds of cancers, a real battle, and they really didn't understand until we did testing and identify what was going on, what was really happening. So here we go. It's a wooden house, and that is the pathway for the live supply from the street. Okay, now that goes into, basically, normally it's the apex of the house. In this place, it's just under the gutter. And the cable is laid in the roof on the ceiling. And then it goes through the wooden cavity and then down to a junction box on the outside. Now, the house is made of wood. Now, that cable is live. So even if you turn off your junction box, that cable is still live. it radiates about 2.5 meters. That's the normal reach, the 50 hertz, 220 to 40 volt supply. That's what comes into your house. So if you know where it is, and it's within 2.5, 3 meters of your bedroom, you really want to reconsider whether you can move that cable or move your bedroom. Now, that's not the only thing happening in that picture. There's the junction box. Now, because they separate the live and neutral cables, which normally lie next to each other and neutralize the magnetic, as soon as you get to a junction box, you get a huge rise in magnetic field, which compounds the issues of the electric field. So it basically takes up a space of that sort of area, which is penetrating the wall and straight into the bed, which is just here under the window. But there's more, as they say. The electricians decided they would like to add air conditioning to the house, and a convenient spot in a Queenslander is just underneath the floor, because there's a gap of about 1 meter in this particular house where they were able to put in 2 compressor units. So now you've got a big magnetic field straight up into the bed, into the springs, into the bed frame, and straight into the people. Okay, so on a warm summer's night, you've got every area of magnetics penetrating that room. Now, with that and the electric field, which reaches 2.5 meters as a minimum from that red cable that comes in, that room is completely consumed by electric and magnetic fields. And sadly, most Australian bedrooms have a minimum of that blue line there, which is the electric field, because behind your bed, you've got the GPO, a general purpose outlet, either side of your headboard, so you can plug a headlamp in or something of that nature, you know, a sideboard lamp. That cable lies somewhere around 0.5 meter from your head. And remember, it's live permanently all night unless you turn the power off at the junction box. So it's worth understanding this. So we're going to try and talk to you about the things you can do to resolve it. The obvious one is go out to the junction box and turn the power off when you go to bed at night. Because if you can isolate that bedroom and work out which fuse runs that room, makes a huge difference, and you'll sleep so much better. Even if you don't believe me, try it out and you'll be surprised. If you turn the power off when you go to bed for 3 days in a row, you'll sleep like you've never slept before. Now, we do design helping with consultations for everything from, we've done it for caravans, we've done it for tiny homes, we've done it for beautiful homes, and fantastic new developments for people, helping them avoid some of the typical things that electricians do and builders do, and help them plan to have a home that is shielded from RF transmitters from outside and the electric fields that are generated in the home. So these are some of the things we're going to try and look at. So dirty power, RF penetration, the electric fields and the magnetic fields. Now, dirty power. Now, we all thought solar was green. Well, unfortunately, the industry has made it very dirty. They could have made very nice inverters that had a sinusoidal waveform, and you'll see them market them as a pure sine wave until I stick an oscilloscope on it, and then their faces drop, because this is what it looks like. It's a green mushy on this particular picture. That's a cathode ray tube. We use digital units now. That red spiking, that is dirty power. The bit you really wanted was that sinusoidal waveform rising and falling. And all the rest of it is rubbish that attacks your nervous system. And it's been nicely proven in numerous studies. Now, the one below is after having some filtering put in. It hasn't removed everything, but it's brought it down to below the biological threshold, which is normally about 35 what's known as Graham-Stetzer units. So that's a GS units. Those units are used by the World Health Organization and other people who try to monitor these types of things. Now, how's that done? It's normally done with a filtering, capacitive filtering, Stetzer filters, and we actually end up representing Stetzer in Australia here. And those of you who are practitioners, we can arrange for you to be able to take these at wholesale to provide to your clients. So we use this type of technology. That's a Fluke 19204. That's the serial number of it, or should I say the model number. They're just a fraction under $10,000. So not many therapists would want to have one of those, but that's the type of equipment we use. The one on the right is about $1,000, and they're used for monitoring the electric charge in the body, and we can literally measure it from you to ground, and we can see how you're picking up the electric fields in the air. You can literally plug it into the lawn, and you can literally see that power going to ground, knowing you're charged, holding charge, because the body is a fantastic antenna for picking up electric fields. That's what it looks like on the oscilloscope. That blue is an absolutely poisonous, dirty power. And we zoom in and it looks like this. You can see the frequency there, it's sitting at almost 16 kilohertz. Now, interesting enough, I was told by an ex-American engineer that the Americans use 20 kilohertz to kill people. They put it on the power lines of their enemies and then drive up the value. Now, here in Australia, we have 16 kilohertz and 20 kilohertz on our solar inverters. We have it at a low level, but it's enough to break down your nervous system over several years and cause illness and death. That's a problem, isn't it? And we provide the solution. That's what it looks like after we've cleaned it up with various technologies. Some of those are Stetzer filters, and that's the type of thing you want. You want the red line, the sinusoidal waveform, and you want the blue as clean as possible. That's what a Stetzer filter looks like, very straightforward. You plug it in the wall. You do have to follow some testing with a meter. That's what a meter looks like, and it gives you simple numbers. And don't worry, it's not complicated. There's no buttons. You plug it in, read the number, read all of them around the house, and then work out how you're going to resolve it by putting the filters in. You'll see the numbers go down, and you'll know what's happened. So it's easy to help people in clinic. And we've got videos that educate the public on how to use those. Now, there are many ways of resolving electric fields, and this is one of them. This is a way of providing a stainless steel meshing. So if somebody was building an extension to a house, or in fact, we've even had one client put this around a vegetable patch, and suddenly got his vegetables growing much better than he did outside of this, because he was pulling down the electric fields to ground. And the plants were literally suffering a whole range of issues in growth. So these types of materials we provide and bring them in from Germany. There are other forms, finer meshes, etc. And if somebody's building a house or trying to modify a house, we help them understand what's most suitable. This is one form of a shielding that goes in the walls. These are the types of results you see, and this is somewhere around 45 and over 50 decibels. That basically means that the values have dropped to somewhere around 99.999%, which is a massive reduction. So if we were looking at an electric field, which includes RF, and you can see at the top here, it's related to frequency. So most of your mobile phones are under 10 gigahertz, so they're about here and here in that pink zone. Paints, there's a wide range of paints on the market. I've worked with the most expensive ones on the market, and we found them twice the price and not anywhere near as good as the stuff that's half the price. So please be aware of that. This paint is very good value, and we provide that. We bring it in from Germany, and it's excellent paint, and it adheres beautifully, and you get wonderful results. And again, we've got many projects going on where they're using these type of materials, and we help people understand how to apply it. Nothing to be afraid of. It's easy to do. You just need some guidance. This works extremely well, and as you can see with this particular version of the paint, with 3 layers, which often we might suggest if there are 5G coming into your area, you can actually get fantastic results here, somewhere around 63 or so decibels, which with that app that I suggested at the beginning, you'll be able to look at that and understand what that means. It's a black paint, and when you put it on the wall, it is black. Three layers of that and then it's grounded. So what do? Well, we actually put the grounding tape between the first and second layer, and then paint the third layer over the top, and then they're grounding plates that we help you understand, and your electrician will then screw that into your grounding circuit, and then it's basically a Faraday cage. There are things we can put in the windows, and we'll discuss that as we go through. Now, if you're wiring a house, or if you wanted to replace that cable between your headboards, you remember you've got the GPO, the general purpose outlet, either side of your headboard, you could replace that cable. That's a very cheap way of resolving the electric field issue. And that's done with shielded cable that we can provide to you. That's somewhere around $6 or so a meter. So it's not expensive to change some of these areas out. And that will reduce or remove that electric field by bringing it to ground. Now, windows are a huge opening for electromagnetics and EMF. So we've got several different solutions. The best in the world is signal defense. It's made for the FBI, the CIA, the CSIRO, and other offices apparently are using it. New Zealand military have just bought 7 kilometers of it. And strangely enough, they use it not to keep RF out, they use it to keep RF in, so they can reduce the amount of Wi-Fi and prevent people from listening into their communications. We use it the other way around, and most of our clients shut down their EMF transmitters at home, and they don't want to be polluted by their neighbors and the local telephone towers. This stuff is really good. It's even got a ballistic rating. So if you have a bomb go out outside, you've got the best chance with this stuff. But there are much cheaper versions, and we bring in from Germany other versions that are very, very good. They're not ballistically rated, but they are very good. And these are also options, and this you can install yourself. So the instructions are provided, and there's a process of installation. So you could do this at home yourself. There are also fabrics for windows. People can make curtains and use these types of things. And they're very close to the same levels as the film in the shield. So you can actually put a combination. You could put a film on the window, and you could also put a net curtain in, which will give you double layers. So in the summer, you could open the window slightly and get an airflow and have the curtain in that gap anyway. So there's combinations that people do. Now, that was covering what we call electric fields. Now, magnetic fields up until now have been notorious for not being able to shield. Well, that has changed. The last 6 months or so, we've been able to provide to our clients shielding that you can shield magnetic fields. So, for example, if you have a junction box, a power box, a fuse box on an outside wall, or an inverter for a solar system, anything of that nature where the cables are opened up to put into terminals, you get magnetic fields, and you could get significant magnetic fields. I've seen up to about 350 milligauss in a bedroom. Anything more than 1 milligauss, according to building biology, has been seen to be very detrimental to health. Well, with this stuff, you're able to remove it or reduce it dramatically by placing it either in the back of the junction box or on the wall. And it's as thin as a razor blade. It's made of cobalt, and you can fold it, and you can make a laminated plate, and you can then put it into the back of a junction box with an electrician or on the wall. The closer you can get it to the source of the issue, the better. But it's a remarkable product, and it works really well. And there's a video on our YouTube channel, which is Health Express World, where I do a demo where I literally measure it, and I put it on the wall, and I fold it up and put another layer until we see it drop and drop. We also have it in strips. So if you had a cable maybe under a floor or something that's producing magnetics, you can wrap it in this spirally round and then have it earthed, and that will pull down the magnetics there as well. So there's many different ways, and we're here to help people with their solutions. You just have to tell us what you're trying to achieve. Now, this is our professional end of things, where we go on and support industry and provide a whole range of monitoring. And this is worth knowing about, because it really is, if you're in industry or councils, libraries, it's worth knowing that there are easy ways to monitor what's going on. So in that picture, there's a range of handheld meters, personal monitors, and devices that we put into buildings, on buildings, into offices, etc. And those items can be networked so that a database is developed and people can log in anytime they want to see what the values are. This is very popular with workers outside. This is something that clips onto the belt or on a climbing vest or on a, on a set of overalls. It monitors up to 60 gigahertz and it alarms, it makes an audible sound, it vibrates, and it basically warns people of the type of levels that they're coming in contact with, particularly if they're at altitude on ladders, on roofs and things of this nature. We also have mapping, where we're able to provide vehicles to map areas, and we've spoken to councils regarding this, and they've even suggested themselves putting these types of things onto the refuge collection trucks so that they map a city, and every few months you move it to another set of trucks, and by the end of the year you've got a whole map of the city, and basically you understand what the values are, and then they repeat the next year and the next year, and you see the development of history related to the rollout of technology. So it's worth knowing these types of things are available. This type of unit, this is a hybrid. It has a monitor inside. It runs off a battery, solar powered. This can be put on the top of a mountain, can be put in a tree, anywhere where it can just continue to monitor, and then it feeds data back to a database that can map areas. So if you had a building that you needed to monitor, this type of thing is ideal. And these are the types of maps that occur, and there's a lot of detail in them, and people can find out from councils and places like that if they have this type of service, or they can ask them if they'd like to install this type of thing, and they're able to see what's going on. Now that was pretty rapid, but I think that hopefully would cover some of those things. And it's a reminder again that for those of you who didn't see the beginning, there's a Blue Block Light discount for those that want to use the code, because that has a whole range of things that are well worth understanding. And for those of you who may be not quite understanding why people want to block blue light, let me take you millions of years into the past, before chemtrails, okay, when we used to have blue skies, and at the moment we seem to be getting that back, which seems quite nice. Your brain triggers a cascade of hormones from the blue and white light that occurs in the early morning. That effectively goes into the eyes, into the cones, triggers the hypothalamus, releases cortisol, which is a stress hormone from the kidney, and it makes you want to leave your cave and go hunting. So you go out for the day and you go hunting, and it's like having multiple cappuccinos. Now, as the sun changes angle over the day, the colors change and the blue and white is diffused, and you then start seeing more amber and yellow. Eventually you see the sunset, and that triggers another cascade of hormones that put you in the parasympathetic, which is the rest, relaxation and reproduction. That lets you sleep well, because the brain is now releasing melatonin, which, as you're all aware, functions as an antioxidant. The brain shrinks and the lymphatic system floods up into the skull along with other areas, and you basically start detoxing overnight. Now, the good news is you now know that. So if you're watching your phone and you haven't set it to nighttime settings, every time you turn it on, it's a big rush of that early morning bright light again. And that will take hours to dissolve, so you won't sleep properly. It's the same with your bright lights in your kitchen. Now, Blue Block have lights. In fact, I've got one here. I don't know if you can see that, but it's a box. And that's a replacement light for the kitchen. And these are wonderful. These are my new best friends. Now, they look just like a normal light. They can plug straight in the units that are in most houses, but instead of being brilliant white, these are a beautiful yellow. And what happens is you don't get that disturbance of the hormones, and you sleep much better by the end of the night. So it's worth recognizing that. Now, The sad news is that the body doesn't know the difference between light and the electric field that comes off the power lines in your house. I'm talking about the cabling in the walls. That electric field we can read with meters, and we apply them to the body or in the air, and we see that electric charge. Your body sees it as if it's a white light, and it refuses to allow the proper cascade of melatonin and other hormonal responses. So even if you walk around in the dark at night, if you've got the electrical fields on, you still need to find a way of shielding that bedroom so that you get the sleep you need. Okay, and if you don't follow it, please contact me and I'll help you understand how to do that, because without decent sleep where the body is allowed to rest, not exposed to electric fields, magnetic fields, RF fields, you will become toxic, and that is a guarantee. So this is something we say to people: don't rent it, don't buy it, don't build it until you know what your EMF exposure is. Well, I hope that's of help to people, and I've been able to do it in 40 minutes. So I look forward to speaking to you guys in a moment. So I'm going to stop the sharing of that PowerPoint. There you go. How about that?
Cyril, that was fantastic, and you did well to get it all in 40 minutes. I've got quite a few questions here that I've been writing down, and I encourage anyone else that's got any questions to also write them down. So I'm going to fire away, make use of our time. You mentioned caravans, and I just wanted to ask you about the safety of using mobile phones in caravans.
Look, no matter where you are, look, a caravan is a bit like your car, okay? You've built a cage and you've got these windows, etc. But it does actually amplify things, because it's not going off in every direction unheeded. It is actually bouncing around a little bit. So it does raise those values. A caravan itself, I don't see it as so much as a problem, other than it's a little bit like being in a car. It does make things worse. For most people, I would just recommend getting air tubes. Okay, it's such a simple thing. They're earphones that have a silicon element. It goes in your ear and it goes over the top of your ear rather than down. So it goes over the top of your ear and then it comes down, and then at the bottom it's got some little cylinders, which is where the speaker is, and it uses air up into the ear, stops the magnetics of the speaker in your ear, stops you holding the phone next to your head. They work very, very well. They're very low cost. They're like $20 on our website. And if you're a practitioner or anybody, you can buy packs of 10, you know, at a lower cost. And if you're a registered practitioner, we actually are able to give you a wholesale code, and you literally get them at a wholesale. So, and they're really easy to have in clinics, because if you everybody's got a phone, and it's the first thing to do is pick it up and put it next to your head. So if you've got air tubes, you're using the phone, getting a really good quality signal. They're good for Apple and Android. They're on our website. They're just so easy. That's a really good, useful way. So if I was in a caravan, I'd probably choose to walk outside. So every radiation the phone makes, it's going in every direction rather than bouncing off the walls. And I'd use an air tube that way. I don't have to be shouting at the phone across the table. The microphone's here, but it's reducing the magnetics that go into the ear.
So that probably also goes then for cars. I know that I'm particularly very careful about making any calls inside a car. I'll either open up a window or step outside, as you said. So that probably applies for cars too, then, I imagine.
Yeah, look, it's just one of those things. I end up traveling quite a bit in the car, and I have to say I do use it, but I don't have to have the phone next to me, because I plug it into a cable, and the telephone controls are actually on the radio. So depending on what you've got, I can answer a call. I can just hit the big button in the middle and it just answers it. You know, and then the transmitter, the phone itself, I tend to throw on the far side of the car, just as if it was on the desk at work, so to speak. So you remember at 11 microwatts per meter at your head, but it's 0.007 a meter away. So just put it on the next seat, put it away from your head.
Okay, that's great. And also something that I wanted to ask you about, I had heard that dirty electricity is associated with MS. Can you validate that or substantiate that with any studies that you know of?
Look, what happens is the nervous system gets distressed with the dirty power, okay? And it's not one disease. And this is the whole thing with EMF and electric field issues. If we could say it gives you, I don't know, freckles, for example, and everybody who uses a mobile phone gets freckles, you go, okay, we might be able to tie this down. But it doesn't produce one thing that you can say, yes, that's it. The toxic change in the body causes the body to go into failure in many, many ways, okay? And it literally could be MS, it could be a lymphatic condition, it could be heart palpitations, it could be nervous system distress, it could be sleeping disorders, it could be eye problems, inflammatory responses, bladder problems. Everybody tends to respond in different ways, and they go, well, I've got this and you've got that, so it can't be the same thing. Well, actually it can be, because if you cut out the EMF when you sleep, your body has time to recover, and it really, really has a massive impact on people's lives.
That's great. The other thing that leads on from that is you mentioned solar panels, and like you said, not many people are aware of solar panels causing such dirty electricity. What would you expect to need as far as the number of filters and where you'd have to put your filters to mitigate having solar panels on the roof?
Okay, well, there's too many variables in the question. Unfortunately, some solar companies have produced models which are not bad at all. They produce maybe about 500 GS units. And remember, we're trying to get down to maybe 25, even 50, 25. If you can get down there, you're much better off than you were at, for example, 2000 plus. Unfortunately, the bulk of them produce 2000 plus. So depending on the wiring of the house, depending on how it's wrapped around the building, commonly the closer it is to the power box, that's if you put filters in that area, then you're reducing it. But problem is, it's not all about what's coming into the house. I've seen houses absolutely wiped out with one vape smoking thing, you know, these electric tube things people smoke, because the charger in that particular case was of such poor quality, it polluted the entire house. The same sometimes with Christmas decorations, the same with phone chargers, the same with laptop chargers. You almost can't guess it. Everything to some level, if it's a poor quality unit, will produce this. So solar panels, if you had nothing plugged into your house, yes, that inverter almost always produces an issue. But let's say that didn't happen. You may still get it from the other things you've got in the house. So we're battling from what's coming in and what's already in the house. Now, we're currently working on developing a whole house unit that would go between the inverter and the junction box. But that won't resolve what's happening within the house. So we're still going to need steps of filters to try and resolve those issues. And it's worth knowing that there are companies who have copied the Stetzer, and they're currently breaking the global patent, and Stetzer will be taking action against those manufacturers and distributors. So it's worth knowing that those copies are direct copies, breaking the patent. So Stetzer have manufactured them very specifically, and under the design and work that Professor Professor Graham and David Stetzer, the engineer, have put together. So as you can now see, it's not just the panel, it's actually the inverter that's causing the issue, but that's only one location. Now, if you don't have solar panels, that's great. But you'll probably find that your house is full of devices that are inducing these problems. And if your neighbors have solar panels, you're buying their dirty power. Now, if you notice, the government are trying to roll out deals to get people to buy battery units. Okay, you want everybody to have battery units, so that way the solar you make during the day, they don't have to provide so much power at night, because you've got battery banks as well. Most of that is because they have huge stocks of batteries at the moment, and the quantum glass batteries are being invested. All the major companies are making huge investments, billions. Even the oil industry are investing billions in quantum glass technology, because that is the future of batteries. You can charge those in minutes. Like a whole Tesla bank was, you can charge in about 60 seconds, and it has a life cycle of 150 years. You can see why they're trying to make you buy the batteries now that they've got, that are totally old technology. Okay, that's what's happening right now. Now, if you've got neighbors, and I mean sometimes kilometers away, their solar developed inverter signal that you buy as electricity, you're buying that dirty power as well. It's, you know, at the end of the day, each clinic should have a Stetson meter. They're about $275, and each of your clients can plug it in, read the number in each room, come back and tell you what's going on. And if it's over 25, you really, really want to help them change it, because that, in clinic, you can only help them with what they're telling you. But by reaching into their home and saying, okay, give me the numbers off this, you can see what's going on in just that one element of dirty power. You haven't looked at the EMFs, the RFs, but you've now got a strong idea. And the solution for a lot of them is turn the power off when you go to bed, that covers your bedroom.
Great. Just so that people know, approximately how many filters would be average for a household?
Look, the maximum I think I've ever put in a house was 17, and that was a huge home. Most of them around 4 to 8. That's a common sort of thing.
Okay, and another question, you mentioned paints. I'm curious to know, do you use those paints on the inside or outside of buildings?
You can do both. You can do both. We have versions of that paint. We have additives that make it suitable for painting on brick and all sorts of things. I don't tend to recommend that though, because the benefit of painting the inside of the wall, as in the inside of the room, is that you're now putting a barrier between yourself and the electrical cables in the walls. If you were to paint the outside of the wall and you still had unshielded cables in the wall, well, then you haven't done yourself any favors. You'd still have that electric issue. So if you're building from scratch, we recommend to use the shielded cables, and we've got, you know, we literally can provide it on 500-meter drums. And we've just done that for a gentleman in the ACT. So he's receiving both lighting and power cables, all screened, so he can do that. So we've got solutions, and we help you, and we look at your drawings and we say, right, this is the best solution for you.
And I suppose if people are going to paint the inside of their house, they're going to need to be extra cautious not to use their microwave devices, their phones and Wi-Fi's inside, because it might make it worse. It might trap it inside. Is that correct?
Well, look, what happens is the walls are highly conductive, even though they're behind that your top paint. So what's really going to go on is that they want to travel through the easiest medium. Okay, now air is not its favorite medium for radio waves. They actually prefer conductive surfaces. So they're going to hit the wall, and they're going to want to go across the conductive surface, and then they'll follow it to ground, because in Australia the standards require that conductive surfaces of that size are connected to the earthing system. Okay, so I've heard people say about ricocheting off the walls. I'm not entirely convinced of it, because the readings we're seeing aren't telling us that. It's different if you're in a sealed box that doesn't allow it to go to ground. But a Faraday cage actually does work in free space. But we normally think of a Faraday cage as dealing with energy coming from the outside and reaching the cage and then traveling all around the cage, but not penetrating it, because it doesn't want to take a hard path, it takes an easy path. The easy paths are conductive surfaces and us, because we're a saltwater solution, and that is perfect for carrying electrical voltages. So it prefers to come to us than travel through the air.
So that also brings up my final question. Thanks for answering all of these. And that's about the curtains that you mentioned, that they can be used for shielding over windows. Would it, given that these materials might actually conduct the radiation, would it be wise not to sleep up against touching these curtains? Is that correct?
Most people don't, because they're normally covered in a polymer. Okay, so you know, they're not surface conductive. There are some that are, and we use those for inside cavities and walls, and we can put a screw into them and connect them to ground that way. We haven't seen any issues with like canopies, etc. And in fact, we've done testing where we've put people in beds and then tested the electrical values while you know, so we test outside the bed and inside the bed on a canopy. We've tested the patient in the bed, and the values, the voltages that are held by the body drop away dramatically. So no, we're not seeing that in testing. And that's probably something important to say, that there's lots of theories going around. We test them and we don't see some of them occur. Like I've had building biologists say, oh, you know, all ricochets round, don't shield your room. Well, actually, no, that's not the case. If we've seen the dramatic collapse in the penetration, and most people who have a mobile phone but they're conscious of EMF, they know that they're not going to get a good signal inside, and they know that if they've got a poor signal, what does the phone do? It's programmed to ramp up the values because it thinks it's a long way from the tower. But if you go outside, of course, it recognizes the signal strength from the tower, and typically if you're not sort of miles and miles away from the tower, it'll drop the value back, and that means you don't have so much exposure to your handheld transmitter.
So I guess in the end, you mentioned a meter that measures the electrical field that we're storing in or on our body. And I guess that is the ultimate test to show us how effective these shielding methods are, how much of this electrical field we're actually still storing in our body. Is that correct? That would be the best, one of the best measures.
Well, it's one of the simplest ones, yeah. Like I imported a meter from the United Kingdom. It's one of those yellow ones that you saw in the first slides. And that meter specifically measures in what's known as microamps, okay? So that's 10 to the minus 6. So that's 6 decimal places back from 1 amp. So it reads very, very low current. That's what amp is. Amperes are a measure of current. And the reason I had an interest in that is if I put a conductive tag on you, like an ECG tag or an ESD strap, and then I plug that into ground, if you're grounded, you would expect that to be 0, wouldn't you?
Mm.
Yep, that's the logic, right? Except if you're working as an antenna, picking up electrical fields from telecom and Wi-Fi, your voltage keeps going up. And that's exactly what we see. And we see that test often with laptops. In fact, we did a really interesting test with a laptop where we used the laptop on battery. Okay, it's plugged into the internet and all the rest of it. And we were looking at, I think it was about 11, no, it was 7. It was 7 microamps. Okay, so 7 microamps. That's a low value. You're using it and you're picking up an electric field from the laptop. And then we plugged in the power supply and the value went up to 950 microamps. So the body was suddenly picking up this electrical field, and we measured the current going to ground. So we now became a pathway to ground. Now, in the testing that's been done globally, looking at body voltage, when they measured current, they found cancerous activity started at 18 microamps. So that laptop was producing 950 microamps just because it was plugged in the power. Okay. Now, everybody here tonight is sitting in front of a computer, and that test is not that hard to do. You can go to JCAR and buy a cheap meter, which will also measure in microamps, and you can do that test for yourself at home. I bought a Fluke, so I knew it was calibrated and stable and accurate. The one at JCAR won't be, but it'll still give you a very strong indication.
What is the one from JCAR? What is it actually called, in case people want to do that?
It's a multimeter. One of my colleagues purchased it. I didn't actually see it, but he said, "Oh, I'll get one from JCAR." I spent $1,000, and I think he said about 50 or something. But because I'm an electrical worker, I can use it in work. I wouldn't use anything from JCAR on a real circuit. I worked on up to 500,000 volt circuits for AusNet in Western Australia, Victoria actually. So I went down and did testing for them there. You don't walk in with anything with JCAR down there. It's a perfect test for a domestic test because you can see the current to ground. Micro is what you're after, and that looks like a little U shape, microamps, and that's a really simple test, really easy.
So it would be a very good experiment to see turning the electricity off at the meter box at night time and checking the body voltage before and after, just to see what's happening there, along with all the other shielding methods as well.
Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. Is there anyone out there who wanted to add some comments or questions? I don't see any in the chat box, but is there anyone out there who wants to add anything?
Well, I see somebody. Okay, you remember I've mentioned the lighting, the blue light, etc., and how I touched on that and gave a bit of a view as to what that's going on. I have my colleague Chris Henderson there. I can see Chris. Hello, Chris. And I absolutely recommend you to speak to Chris, and he can introduce himself, because Chris, I'm certain, would provide a fantastic talk on hormones and how light and light energy integrates into the body, because it's a topic that I've been learning from him. He's been educating me, and it's a fantastic thing to know about. So open up his mic and say hi, Chris.
Hey, yeah, hey guys, yeah. We had a quick chat before you came on, Cyril, and I said we worked together, and we did it. We've done 6 or 7 talks together. So yeah, I'd love to do something like that. It's quite an in-depth topic. I've been a health coach for the last 4 or 5 years, and I was introduced to light through Jack Cruz's work, Dr. Jack Cruz. You guys might be aware of Dr. Jack Cruz. So I used to wear prescription glasses, and my eyes were getting worse and worse. My eyes actually lost my eyesight when I was working in an insurance broker's office, and I'd been exposed to a laptop for the first time in a work environment. And within 6 months, I'd lost my eyesight. And I just followed Dr. Cruz's protocol, what sunrises in the morning and blue blocking glasses at night. And within about 6 weeks, my eyes were better. I could read books again. I tossed the prescription glasses away, and people just can't fathom that.
It's great, isn't it? The power of light, what it can destroy and also heal.
For sure. So, yeah, I'd love to chat. I've got a full slideshow presentation. Cyril and I did one at Woodford, so I've probably got 50 slides, same as Cyril, but try and get through it in about half an hour. So, yeah, all about light therapy and the downlighting and how the downlights are engineered and things like that. So
we'd love to have you on, Chris. We'll make contact with you then after the webinar and see if we can arrange that. Probably in the new year would be just wonderful. And Cyril, I just wanted to quickly say we've got another quick question here. It's probably not a quick one, it's a huge one. It's from Angelica, and she would like to know if any of these smaller little adhesive shielding products that you can put onto the phone are at all effective?
There's a really simple answer for that. No. I think I've just lost the picture. Oh, what's happened here? My apologies.
Do you want to share your screen?
No, I was just trying to get back to you. Okay, well, I hope you can see me anyway.
Yeah, we can see you.
Cool. No, they don't. They don't work. Look, when they do the testing, okay, and this is a thing that people will find entertaining. Okay, what they do is they produce a very tiny ion field. Okay, now that's quite nice. Problem is, you're a really, really big and very thirsty electrical conductor. Your body just sucks in electrical fields. And these little discs, all they do is fool a very cheap EMF meter. Okay, so what happens is that very, very cheap EMF meter has it's not isotropic, it has no immunity to fields at all. They're rubbish meters, and they use it. You see them. They put the meter next to the thing and pull it away again and put it in. And what it's doing is fooling the meter. Okay. If you were to take a second meter and just sit next to it, you'll notice it's not moving at all. It just sees the RF. So what they've done is they fooled everybody by going, oh, it's resolving the RF. It's not resolving the RF at all. Every single stick-on and pendant I've played with, and I've done over 40 of the stick-on ones, they don't work. I'm sorry, they do not work on a genuine transmitter, as in a mobile phone and things of this nature, a router, Wi-Fi, all the rest of it. Yeah, it's a simple one, really. And the same with these metal plates, the titanium plates that they heat up and make pretty and they look nice. No, they don't have any influence at all on genuine EMF, the stuff that makes your body go into a toxic state. Okay, the copper ones, all the stone ones, and the shungite ones, they do other things, but they do not change the absorption rate of EMF in the body. There are numerous manufacturers who spend a fortune in marketing, and I've taken their boxes apart, I've taken their pendants apart, I've taken their plugins apart. They've all got the same thing in them. They've all just got a flashing LED, and we've put oscilloscopes on them and test equipment and put them in EMF fields. They don't do anything for EMF. Okay, so a lot of products claim to block or protect you from EMF. If they haven't done channel gate testing, calcium channel gate testing, and proven it will change the environment for the body, then it doesn't. Live blood analysis is not a valid test for any EMF. Okay, it's just a bogus smoke and mirrors. You can change your live blood analysis with a prayer, with breath, change of mind, glass of water. Okay, you don't spend thousands of dollars on these items for reproducing what you can do with breathing.
Sorry, can I just add, when I met Cyril 2 years ago, with my health coaching stuff, I was directing people to a particular brand of EMF blocking plug-in epoxy resin block, which I donated a few to Cyril to boil down and see what the constituents were, and they were an epoxy resin block and a 3-prong plug from Bunnings, and sold at a very high retail margin. I'll just leave that there.
I've got another
video on that one, actually, didn't I? I did a video and boiled it up to show the public.
I've got another question here too, just to add on to that. Copper pendants on the body, would they shield the person?
No, they're a great way of increasing the electrical toxicity. You remember that electric fields, which is what RF is, they want to travel through a conductor. You know, and salt water's great, that's us, but copper, that's really good for carrying electrical charge. We've done testing where we had people standing in a hotel lobby, and we measured the electric field on the body, and then we handed them different things. And we handed them a Tesla plate, you know, the titanium plate. And it's about the size of a dinner plate. And the manufacturer claims it protects up to so many kilometers. And it's just laughable, really. So we put them in their hand, and we saw the value just rocket straight up. And anything that's a conductive surface will raise those in that way. The only way you can get a conductive surface to pull it away is to get a large sheet of conductive material, such as netting, right? Like one of the shielding nettings. And you want it to touch the ground, go all the way over your head and back down the other side, and completely encompass the body with no holes whatsoever. And then you'll notice that the voltage will dissipate in the body. And we know that because we've done it in testing. But as soon as you bring your arms out, the body goes, wow, and pulls all the electrical fields straight in. That's the RF. If you put it around your body up to here, your head just sucks it in. You literally are fooling yourself if you think you can put a shirt on and say it's reducing the overall body voltage. It is, let's say you put a shirt on that's got made of shielding material, and if you want to carry your phone in that pocket in the top, then actually you have actually tried to shield it, but you're better off shielding the phone or turning it off, which is a much better way. People seem to be so resistant to do the most sensible thing, which is change their message on their phone. Hi, this is me. Leave a message. I check my phone 6 times a day. I look forward to calling you back. Now, what are you going to do? Every 3 hours, turn your phone on, check the messages, and then have that conversation with an air tube or across the table, and then turn the thing off again. That's the quickest way to reduce your worst conductor, which is the phone itself. People seem to be very resistant to do that.
Cyril, one last thing, I can't help myself but to ask you one more question, and that's about certain techniques that are claimed to protect us from EMFs using informational change of the waveform through scalar waves. What would it take for something like that to actually be effective in doing what it's claiming? What would you need in a system like that?
Okay, well, protection is when something cannot penetrate. Okay, now the people who are talking about scalar in that manner basically are making up, not going to say it, but they're making up rubbish, right? The scalar fields of the body, yes, you can interact with the scalar fields and you can support the body, okay? But the penetration from a major energy toxin is penetration, right? It's not, you can't change the reaction. We're watching the chemistry change in the testing, okay? So scalar is wonderful if you can get into a space which isn't drowning in EMF and then support the body with these subtle energies. Absolutely, no problem. But if you're not shielding it properly, and these things do not shield the body, right? The shielding is a very deliberate physical event. We don't yet have any good energy systems that can actually shut down and protect you. Imagine EMF as a bullet, okay? And you wear a bulletproof vest, okay? The idea is to reduce the amount of penetration, okay, and give you an opportunity to get out of the way, right? Back to a space that isn't full of bullets, right? Like a shielded room, okay? But you can use the energy technologies to support your recovery from the shock of the event, from the bruising. You can support the damage, the contusion and things of this nature after the event, right? If you can get into a place where you're not still being bombarded with the bullets, okay? But scalar energy cannot neutralize EMF. At this point in history, we don't have any of that.